Hi, everyone, and welcome to Keeping It Real Caregiving on Air. I'm your host, Julia Yarbo. Typically, when we talk about family caregiver, we may think about elders. In our case today, we're being joined by a woman who has been a family caregiver, except for her spouse, her husband. I'd like to welcome Jen Stewart to Keeping It Real Caregiving. Thank you so much for joining us, Jen.
Thank you, Julia. Hello.
Now, your situation is a little bit different. You were a caregiver for your husband who you recently lost. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it was something that really hit us out of the blue before he was diagnosed with cancer and started suffering from the disease. He was the healthiest person. He was my best friend, my partner. We did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu together as a family. He had just turned 50 and was on this quest to be the healthiest he has ever been at the age of 50. So every day there's a local nature tower that's about 5 flights of stairs actually. And every day after work, he would run that 20 times a day, running 100 flights of stairs. Wow. So he was, my fitness partner. He was my parenting partner. We're fortunate in that we always had the same shared values in raising our family. And then all of a sudden, my partner needed help. And it was a situation where you saw the disease quickly taking things away from him, where he was starting to lose who he used to be. So it was challenging because it wasn't even, it was the caregiving, but you're also losing your best friend and watching that happen before your eyes. And it's, it was difficult. But you also had to be that support system and that strong person for him and for the kids.
And so within that role as a caregiver, and as you said, you're watching this and it's your life partner, your best friend, and you're having to experience that. Did you find that there were support services? I mean, where did you turn? How did you make sense of this in your mind that this is happening to my husband?
First, we were very fortunate that we are surrounded by an amazing group of people who just stepped in and did things that we didn't even know we needed at the time. My sister got together with our group of friends and we had dinner delivery. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we'd have dinner delivered to the house. We had people that would stay with him when I needed to leave the house. Publix gift cards would just show up in my mail from time to time for groceries. I mean, I just didn't even realize what we needed. And we have a 2-story house, and he got to the point where he couldn't walk anymore. And it's like his mom knew that and saw that was going to happen, because before that ever happened, she worked with his brothers and sisters and they purchased and installed a stair lift for us. It was just like everybody would seem to be 2 steps ahead of us.
And that brings up a good point that you said you had a lot of family and friends around who could look ahead. How important was that during this journey to plan ahead, as difficult as it was to know your husband's diagnosis and to feel the emotions of it? How critical was it that you stayed focused and had to keep planning ahead?
It was such a delicate balance, because you did have to plan ahead. But, when you're going through any terminal disease or really any serious illness, you don't know what tomorrow brings. So you can plan as much as you want, but the treatment's going to change tomorrow, or it might not work tomorrow. So you can plan as much as you want, but also you have to be flexible. And you also wanted to stay in that moment and enjoy that person for who they were, because again, he was slowly slipping away from who he was. A term that we used and I learned during this whole time was anticipatory grief. And, I started grieving him before he was even gone. The moment we got the diagnosis and when we started the consultations for the treatment, it's just our life flashed before my eyes, because we were supposed to retire together and RV around the country together. And I knew that wasn't going to happen. So there was a whole grieving period before he was even gone in August.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about the grief aspect of things, but you described your husband already as your best friend. Who was Tom? What made him so unique?
He was a prankster. He was a jokester, the king of all dad jokes, for sure. Make the kids roll their eyes, but they loved them. He was an engineer, radio broadcast engineer. He worked for Univision up until the time he got sick. He was a family man. We both came from big families and we're very close to both his and my family. He was just a gentle soul. He was where I can get anxious and nervous about what tomorrow brings. He was that calming presence.
Is there a way to describe what you've moved through that perhaps somebody else who may be entering into this, is there anything that can make this less painful, or do you simply have to move through it over time?
Yeah, unfortunately, you just have to feel it and move through it. There's no other way. And if you try to escape it, it's going to hit you, when you least expect it. So it's something that you have to recognize and, take time. Caregiving, we all know, is time consuming, and it's so easy to get lost in the day to day of doctor's appointments and medications and your career and parenting and everything else going on in the life. But yeah, it's something that you do have to take that time for yourself and feel it. Know when you're starting to hit the wall. I mean, there were days where I would just want to collapse on the floor and never get up back up and say, I can't do this anymore. But you just get back up and keep doing it because you really don't have a choice.
What can we do as fellow caregivers to embrace, a caregiver like yourself, so that we have a broader understanding that there are similarities, but there are differences? Anything that would be helpful for everybody out there?
There are definitely a lot of similarities, but I think it just goes back to, that spouse is your partner, and that's the person that you had plans with for the rest of your life. That's the person who you raised your children with. So, the relationship with your spouse is different than your parents. So this is the person you're supposed to be spending your lifetime with.
I think one of the things I'll say as a family caregiver, that we know that there is a finality when we're talking about an elder parent, and it's different with somebody who is your life partner. And I know there are people who want to say or do things that would be comforting, and maybe they say something comforting and maybe they don't. Any words of advice or input for people who just feel at a loss? What would be something that would be helpful so that they're helpful, but they're not hurtful to you?
And I used to be that person that would either say the wrong thing or just stay away because I didn't know what to say. So, there's no right thing to say. Just send a text with a heart on it to let them know you're thinking of them, or just, offer to pick up groceries or dinner for them. Just let them know you're there. Give them a hug when you need to give them a hug. With me, it was give me an hour or two break to get out of the house and stay with my husband and take care of him. Because while I had my kids at home with me, I also didn't want to put all of that on them, because I wanted them, my daughter was in college, my son was in high school, and I wanted them to have as much of a normal life as they could. I mean, granted, we didn't, but I didn't want to take that time away from them if I didn't have to.
As you move forward, what would you say are the top 3 steps that you're looking at to navigate the next chapter for your life while still moving through this experience?
First, I would say that just like the anticipatory grief, you have to go through this grief, and it's a different stage, and it's a second stage of the grief. And I, started off saying, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pay my house off. I'm going to, do this at work and all these plans for myself, get back to the gym right away. And then I finally hit a wall, like, wow, you're trying to do too much, and you're not. You're really just trying to run away from what you're feeling. So I would say, do what you can, but you're not going to be able to run away from that feeling. And if you do, you're going to get kicked pretty hard down the road. So feel it out. And if you have to cancel plans, if you, just can't go to work one day because you need a mental health day, take care of yourself and do it, because you're going to be better tomorrow if you do.
Do you feel as if there's anything particular that you learned about yourself that really surprised you within that role of caregiving, that just you had no idea about yourself, that you will now carry with you moving forward?
I mean, I have to say it's a strength, and I did appreciate down the road. I had so many people tell me how strong I was. Um, what I found was interesting, and Julie, I know you're athletic as well, but sometimes you pull on the same things when you're in the gym and you don't think you can go any further, or when I was on the jujitsu mat and didn't think I could get up and fight any harder. It's that same will that you have to keep going is that you draw on to keep going in the fight of life. Sometimes it's that same inner drive or inner will to keep moving. And those were the things that helped pick me up when I wanted to lay down on the bathroom floor and not get up and move anymore.
And for folks who may say, if they find themselves in a similar situation, they say, you know what, I've got this. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm strong. I can handle it. Would you advise people to reach out and seek counseling or find support groups? I mean, how valuable was that for you?
Oh my gosh, invaluable. I had individual therapy that I'm still doing. We did support groups together at Gilda's Club. On Wednesday nights, they had a patient group and a caregiving group that ran concurrently. And so we would have dinner together as friends, and then I'd go to my group, he'd go to his group. And that was a safe place where you could say whatever was on your mind and it was okay. And you learned a lot of information. I think I mentioned to you that your palliative care podcast, that was something I never knew about until I went to Gilda's Club. So that, what a great resource that we don't know about to take advantage of.
What would you advise to doctors, hospitals, nurses, the whole system? What do we need to do better to serve people that are going through a situation like this?
For me, it would be to model what Tom's doctors were, to be not just a doctor, but understand the feelings behind it and emotions behind it and what the family's going through, and to be there for that caregiver as well.
As you were getting closer to the time when you and your husband were realizing that your time together was coming to a close, anything that you recall in that window that it's that little piece that you will always have with you, like those moments? Is there anything that stands out in your mind?
So Tom's saying was, and that one's just might make me tear up. He would say, "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living." And so we did what we can to make sure he enjoyed life. He loved karaoke. Anytime we had a party, even before he was sick, he would set up karaoke. And, we continued the karaoke parties. If we went to an event pre-COVID, he was out on the dance floor. It didn't matter. He was in a wheelchair and can only move one arm. We brought him on the dance floor and he was just pumping his right arm and having a good old time. So it was just a matter of, letting him enjoy what he can. To see him laugh was just, it would make you laugh, because he would crack up at the silliest things. And we just try to let him enjoy every day. And I had great friends that they knew when I was tired and overwhelmed and couldn't do it, they took over and had those good times with him.
Well, Jen, I know this has to be a difficult time for you. So I really appreciate you sharing, your personal journey and sharing a little bit of your husband with all of us. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers in our parting words, as they say?
Gosh, I would say when you're caregiving, be kind to yourself. Because we try to do everything perfectly. We try to make the right decisions. We try, we try not to get angry at our person sometimes, but it's going to happen. And so forgive yourself if you mess up, if you forget something, if you snap back at them for a moment, and know you're human, and just, take a moment, be compassionate with yourself, take a little moment's break before you move on. It's a tough job and it's a tough balance, and you're doing the best you can.
I think you could not have said that more perfectly, to just remind everybody that, this is a tough job and it takes a lot out of you. So thank you so much for your words of advice and your encouragement. And I know that everybody who gets to know you from this session will also be sending you their love and support. So Jen, thank you so much for joining, and all of us, our deepest condolences and prayers for your husband's life.
Thanks, Julia.